meeting. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Audit Committee of the North Wales Fire and Rescue Service. Right, everybody's had an agenda and everything. Do I have any apologies?
Yes, we've got apologies from Beverly Parry-Jones and Gwynfor Owen.
Okay, right. Moving on, declarations of interest. If anybody's got any declarations of interest regarding any matters on today's agenda, I can't see anybody's hand up. Okay, moving on, I've got the minutes of the previous meeting. So let me go to that. We do it page by page. So we've got page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6. Right. Okay, any points of accuracy? Are those accurate? Anybody who was there would like to propose those then? Okay, John Brimore, I've got. Thank you very much. Anybody seconding that? Adwin, thank you very much. Matters arising then. Does anybody have any matters arising that are not covered on the agenda on those minutes? Yes, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that the response to the Welsh Government consultation on the governance arrangements was submitted, and a number of the member workshops were held as well. So that item is currently with Welsh Government officials, but we haven't heard the outcome of the consultation yet.
Okay. Right. Does anybody else have any matters arising? No. Can't see everybody. I must say, if you just put your hand up, I think it highlights people then. Okay, all right then, moving on then. We don't need to accept those. We've already accepted the accuracy, don't we, Gareth? That's it. We can move on then. Okay, item number 5, appointment of deputy chair. Do we have any proposals for deputy chair? Well, I'd like to propose somebody. I'd like to propose Councillor Tina Claydon from Flintshire. Tina, are you on the call? I can't see anybody with this view.
Can I second that, Chair?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anne. Okay, I can't see any other nominations. Any other hands up? All out? No? Okay, so if everybody would like to vote. Okay, 4. Right. I can't see everybody. Gareth, I hope you're counting.
I am, Chair, very quickly.
Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Abstentions?
Were there any against, Chair?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was coming to that the wrong way around. Any against?
So that's carried, Chair.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Welcome, Tina. I'm sure you will be grateful. You will be very good at your position, and I look forward to working with you closely.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item number 6, the National Fraud Initiative Audit Wales Report 24-25 for information. And Helen, are you leading on that?
I'm probably going to defer to my colleague Carwyn. It is for information. It's an initiative that all public sector bodies participate in. And before I cut across everything that Carwyn is going to say, I'll hand over. Thank you.
It's most of my thunder, like you, but yeah. Thanks, Chair. And unfortunately, I've got to leave after this item to attend other meetings. But thank you for putting this item on the agenda. It's an information report to raise awareness of the National Fraud Initiative, which is a UK-wide counter-fraud exercise that happens every 2 years. So this briefing note just provides an update on the current exercise and some data around local matches, which is quite small in the number of matches when compared with other sectors and bodies. But over the coming months, my colleagues will be conducting a high-level assessment of governance arrangements, follow-up arrangements of NFI matches, and that will all be put into a national report then, this hopefully scheduled for publication in autumn 26. But here today, in case any members did have any questions.
Okay, so opening up, does anybody have any questions regarding the National Fraud Initiative report? I know some of this will be covered in the next item as well. Helen, if you want, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify really, when we have a data match, it's not an indication of fraud. It's simply a signpost of an area that you might like to look at in more detail. And I think, as you've just said, I think this is going to be picked up by Anne Harrod in her internal audit update. And it was just to give that assurance to members, matches in themselves aren't indicators of fraud.
Yeah, I mean, can you give us an example of what would you consider a high match?
Yes, of course. So by way of an example, if somebody featured on the payroll of one of our local authorities, so say Denbighshire, but they also featured on our payroll, that would be a match. And there could be a very, very good explanation for that, especially where we have a retained workforce who do hold two contracts. Whereas so that would be something that would match, and we would investigate it and say, yeah, we're satisfied that they work for the local authority, but they also have a retained contract with us, and that then is signed off. Alternatively, if we had somebody working in our corporate service department holding a whole-time contract and also work for Denbighshire holding a whole-time contract, that would be a data match. And when it was investigated, it would need, it's potentially fraud. So 2 examples, same match, but totally different outcomes.
Okay, thank you for that example. Do we have any other questions on this item? No, I can see Monday morning be quite quiet. Okay, moving on then. Thank you ever so much for that report. Do we have to vote all in favour of accepting it? Okay. So do we have a proposer that's accepted then? Okay. Austin, you got your hand up. And a seconder for that. Councillor Ian Hodge, thank you very much. All in favour? Thank you, Diolch. Oh, sorry, Gareth, you've got your hand up. Is that an in favour hand? You're on mute, Gareth.
No, I was just voting in favour, sorry.
All right, and I forgot to say congratulations on coming back to us and
Thank you, Gareth.
rejoining us, our authority. Look forward to working with you again. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, moving on then, we've got the Anne Hannad here, who's from MIA, the internal audit, and she will go through the progress report for December 2025, I believe.
Yeah, so diolch yn fawr iawn a bore da. So this progress report covers the work undertaken between the 1st of September to the 30th of November 2025. So since the last audit committee, we've issued 2 reports, so I'll take these in turn. So the first one was in relation to the business planning review. This resulted in an overall substantial level of assurance. So overall, the review identified there was a good system of internal control in place. We also identified a number of areas of good practice. At the time of the review, it was confirmed that new templates have been created for the strategic outline cases as well as the full business cases. And we've just made a few recommendations just to improve the control environment further. But I'm happy to take any questions and pause there if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. One question I have, it's similar to what I asked Helen earlier, is it's got 29 very high risk data matches. Can you give me is that unusual for this size of organization, or is that average? Yeah. And can you give me an example of what that was within the North Wales Fire Authority?
I was going to take the NFI one next, but I'll answer your question. So I think that's quite low, actually.
Yeah. Right, okay.
For the size of the organisation and for your type of organisation. But yes, we can confirm that all matches have now been reviewed and no instances of fraud or overpayments have been identified. So this exercise is now closed. We will do the same exercise again in 2 years, but I think it's fantastic news for your organisation, really positive.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got any questions regarding this report? Okay. I don't know if it's part of this report, but I noticed you've got your accreditation in cybersecurity as well.
Yeah, so we've also got just for information, just to provide that assurance to the audit committee that we have got that now in place. And also we have our added value section, which you can see on page 26 of our papers, which provides an overview of the briefings that we've issued, as well as the events that are coming up in January. These are free of charge for you to attend. Just log on to onto the link there. If you have any problems, let me know. But yeah, they are free of charge. Not many things are free these days. And they are very much added value if you do decide to attend. The plan is progressing really well. We've only got a couple of things left to do to close 25-26, and we will be in the process of putting the plan together for 26-27. Happy to take any other questions. Diolch yn fawr.
No, I can't see anybody with their hands up. Just looking. No. Okay, I think everybody is amazed by the quality of your report this morning, Anarad, and I'm sure there'll be things coming up in the future that you might be able to answer. But thank you ever so much for that. I look forward to working with you soon.
Diolch.
Okay. We've covered both item 7s? Yes. Okay. Moving on to Treasury Management update. Elgan, are you leading on that?
I hope David is.
David, right. I haven't got a list of who's doing what, unfortunately, this morning.
Yeah, bore da bawb. We've got to this so quickly, I haven't found my place. Yeah. So, yeah, diolch, Elgan. The Elgan's done all the work. I'm just presenting the report, really. But item 8 on the agenda is the Treasury Management Report for the 6 months. I'll go ahead in Welsh from here on. Item 8 ar yr rhaglen...
Item number 8 in our programme, the regular Treasury Management Report for the first 6 months. And this provides the latest information to you about the Treasury Management activity covering the period from the 1st of June to the end of September. But to be honest, it covers a 6-month period from April onwards. So you approved the Treasury Management strategy for the current year back on the 28th of April. And paragraph 5 states, to all intents and purposes, that during the year, the borrowing investment levels remain well within the limits originally set. There were no new defaults by banks in which the authority has deposited money. So you set the borrowing limits. We are comfortable with these. And where we've deposited cash, there aren't any difficulties arising with the banks. And to an extent, this recommendation number 6 follows. But point number 5 covers everything you need to know, covering the last 6 months. And in paragraph 6, we are asking you to make a note of the Treasury Management activities and the prudential indicators for this period. I'll go through just a couple of highlights. We have enough time this morning, it would appear. Paragraph 7, it shows that we've had the peak CPI in August, and ever since it is down to 3.6% in October, but it remains significantly higher than the Bank of England target. I will move on to table 2. Table 2, yes, this shows a summary, and you'll see the first 2 lines. The long-term borrowing has increased a little from 8.5 million to 2.25 million, and then the short-term borrowing has reduced down to 5 million. And the bottom of this page paragraph 19, you have a summary of the remaining loans. And then you have the borrowing position on top of the next page. You'll see that all the current loans come from the Public Works Loans Board. And Elgan has borrowed £1 million more at the end of October. We will have to borrow some 2 or 3 million again to fund the capital expenditure. And the natural redemptions, equal installments of principals, EIP, just in case someone is wondering what this stands for. It's not that important, but some of you might be pondering. Paragraph 23. During the 6 months, and now we are looking at the investment activity. During the 6 months, the authorities' investment balances had varied a great deal. As is the case with cash flow, we get a significant grant and we spend it, and then it varies greatly. It varies between £1 million and 14 million of money in hand to invest. So Elgan and the team is to put this money in a safe place. They have done this, and to an extent, this is limited. As per paragraph 27, it's limited to short-term deposits with Lloyds Bank and Barclays Bank, where we have overnight accounts, and also with the DMO, the Debt Management Office, as stated in paragraph 28. The Debt Management Office is somewhere in London, just over the corridor from PWLB. So the government is borrowing from one end of the corridor and it receives investments from the other end through the DMO. So we just have details then from paragraph 29. I will not elaborate. We are satisfying the statutory requirements, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Diolch, David. As Treasurer, I know you've gone through these figures with a fine-tooth comb and looked at our borrowings and also our investments. But does anybody else have any questions regarding this, contents of this report? Yes, Gareth, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wondered, David, do we actually benchmark our borrowings against other fire authorities for our size and things? I was only coming at it from the view that if our funding arrangements ever changed and we were out of line, i.e. the borrowing was higher, that could actually have an effect on our revenue budgets and things like that, David?
Yeah, cwestiwn ôl, Gareth.
Welcome back, Gareth. It's a fair question. And I don't think that we do benchmark our investments or indeed our borrowings. The borrowings, well, some of them are, you might say, an accident of history. They've been there for decades in some cases, and it would be difficult perhaps to benchmark under those circumstances. One takes the opportunity when one has to borrow rather than everyone following the rules of the game, as it were. But this is something that we can consider in the future. There is such a comparison. I'm not sure whether we have discussed this with Elgan recently, but we'll have a look at this. Perhaps by the end of the year. I think we had someone from Ardling close to discuss this with you when we presented the strategy, and perhaps they can provide some independent assistance to outline how we are comparing. Well, that's fair enough, David. I was just thinking it's a small risk, especially as we're looking to raise our borrowings with investment in the training centre and so forth. It's just something for us to keep in the backs of our minds with the new funding model, and that we have a certain set amount across the whole of Wales. If we had, if our borrowings were much higher than everyone else's, then this could impact our revenue budget going forward. But it is a relatively small risk at the moment. I don't think we are borrowing a lot at the moment, to be honest, and it's self-funding where the balance is really to an extent. So, as you say, Gareth, it's not a huge issue at the moment, but if we have to invest large amounts in the training centre, we'll need to look at this moving forward, and that is fair enough.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. Very pertinent. It was one I had wrote down. How do we compare with other fire authorities? But also, are we looking to reduce that due to the fact that we will need to borrow and leverage of our investments in 18 months to 2 years' time, maybe, because we have a substantial investment to make, and I can see it being a very particular large loan if it goes ahead. I notice we've got 4.34%. Sorry, we've got a larger percentage with interest rates dropping. Are we looking to swap that debt and reduce it? I'm just wondering if we'd had a look at our loans. Thank you, Helen. You're going to answer that?
Yeah, a couple of issues really. We do work very closely with Arlene Close. They're treasury management advisors across the local government sector. They do benchmarking. But I would we certainly will look at that across the Welsh Fire and Rescue sector as well. In terms of our debt portfolio, sadly it was very short term in terms of those fixes, and we are working with them Arlene Close, where the opportunity presents itself to put a little bit further stability by reprofiling the loans. So sadly, interest rates have remained stubbornly high, but for us, the decision is always around that affordability. And we do recognise that the training centre in the next 18 months will be a big decision point for us.
Okay, thank you ever so much for that. Do we have any more questions from the committee? No. Okay, something that we will look to manage. Elgin, are you okay with everything? Yep. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do we have a proposal for that recommendation? I'm trying to find the recommendation now. There's that much information.
Paragraph 6, Chair.
Paragraph 6. I'm trying to find the paragraph. I'm on the wrong page, I think.
36 of the pack.
Oh, yes, I see. Paragraph 6. So, yes, you to note the Treasury management activities and the prudential indicators for the period of the 1st of June to the 30th of September. So can we have a proposal? We accept that. Okay, we've got Ian Hodge, Councillor Ian Hodge, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Tina Claydon. All in favour of receiving that report? Thank you very much.
Diolch wel.
Diolch. Okay, moving on, budget setting. So we've had a few meetings, and we are where we are now, and I would like to take it over to Elgin. The floor is yours.
Diolch Cadeirydd. So today I'll take you through the process we have followed to set a balanced budget for 26-27 and outline the current levy position. This is an important stage in our planning cycle, as we must share indicative levy figures with local authorities by the end of December. The Budget Scrutiny Working Group has been central to this work. So the group includes representatives from each local authorities and has met on 5 times during the year. Those meetings look closely at all part of our expenditure and income, looking at pay costs, non-pay costs, capital financing and income. As a service, we use zero-based budget, and any new item expenditure over £10,000 needs a business case. And as Anhard mentioned earlier, we've got a new template for this year based on the government's 5 case model. Again, as part of the Budget Scrutiny Working Group, external advisors provided some training to the group around business cases and capital financing from Marlin Close. And then key milestones included the first budget that was presented in September, a second draft in October with refined assumptions and risk, and the final proposed budget was presented to the group on the 19th of November. This process has given transparency and challenge and ensures our plans align with authorities' wellbeing objective and duties. In terms of the proposed revenue budget for 26-27, this stands at 54.375 million, with a plan to utilise 271,000 from reserves on one-off expenditure to ease the impact on the levy. This gives a draft levy of 54.1 million, which is an average increase of 4.47% across local authorities. This is an improved position from the first draft, which was an increase of 6.5% seen in paragraph 12, with scrutiny from the group and the finance team leading to an increase in income projections and a reduction in pay and non-pay cost. Just in terms of detail, employee costs are expected to increase by about 4.9%, and this does include £352,000 to expand capacity in line with recommendations from the Fire Advisor for Wales. Excluding these additional costs, the underlying year-on-year increase is closer to 4%. Non-pay costs will rise by 2.5%, but by utilising the 271,000 from reserves to fund one-off items, the levy impact from non-pay is closer to 0.2%. And then we've also looked at our income budget, and this has also gone up as we've now included budgets for the sale of vehicles and interest expected on cash balances. And finally, a capital allocation of 6.6 million is proposed for 26-27. However, schemes will only progress once all allocated business cases have been fully developed and approved. Appendix 1 of the report set out the planning assumptions, the key risks and uncertainties. But to summarise some of the key points, 3.8% was included for pay award for all staff. However, pay negotiation for 26-7 have not been agreed. Grant income may change, which could affect our funding position. Interest rates could move, as we've touched on in the Treasury Management paper. And we also face challenges with recruiting staff, especially into RDS posts. Before I conclude, I'd like to thank all members of the Budget Scrutiny Working Group, the finance team and budget holders for their engagement and scrutiny during the process. Diolch.
Diolch, Elgan. All right. Okay, open to questions. Okay, John Brimore Hughes.
Good morning, bore da. Thank you for the report. Can you tell me how the increase in levy percentage is decided on? Because I can see that Wrexham is 5.3% and Gwynedd is 5.13%, and the rest are, most of the rest are, are quite a bit lower in percentage. How is that? How do you get to that figure, please?
That's fine. So we had a detailed discussion in one of the earlier budget scrutiny working groups around this, and essentially it's the impact of the population data. So movements in population will impact the levy. So we use the Office of National Statistics data, which was based on mid-2024, and that's what we utilise to proportion out the levy. So if your levy increases over 4.47%, it means that your share population has increased compared to sort of the national average. So it's based on population data. So in the report, we mentioned 4.47 average across all local authorities, but yeah, there will be local authorities above that and some below based on their population.
Okay.
I am led to believe in the last council that we did say that the population of Gwynedd is on the way down.
I suppose it's in comparison with the other authorities as well. So even if it's on the way down, there might be other shifts in local authorities. I can share further the detailed breakdown on that if it'll help.
Diolch. David, you've got your hand up. Do you want to add to this? Or?
Yeah, just to confirm two things really. First, as Elgan says, it's the population statistics. We have to use those particular general population statistics. That's written down in statute, so we haven't got any choice in how it's allocated between the 6 constituent authorities. The other matter is that the fact that Gwyned's population is going down and their allocation of the funding is going up. It's the grants to Gwynedd is amongst the lowest because the relevant population is going down, and that includes the more people of school age, children of school age requiring education is a big driver of the funding, and people on benefits, etc. I think Gwynedd has an influx of older people who are not on benefits, and that means that those people don't attract grants in the same way as some other people. So it's different population statistics, and unfortunately for Gwynedd in this instance, and for Exham, it's just the wrong type of population that's increasing or decreasing for them. So it's devil's in the detail, John. But we've got no real choice in the appropriation of our funding to authorities on this basis.
Okay. Is that okay for you, John?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's based on a formula, fixed formula, and we don't have any say in it. That's how it works. So I would like to ask a question regarding we've trialed the nucleus of fire stations and fire resources. How is that working out on a resource finance point of view? Is it going okay so far with the limited time we've had there? Are we seeing any increases, or are we expecting the finances there? And also the capital financing, can you tell me if that's a fixed certain figure we've put together through that? Oh, and I've got another question regarding our pay levy. How confident are we in the pay levy with regards to the union exception? The pay increase awards. Okay, I've got Helen to start with, and then I've got Ant.
Thank you very much. Well, I probably, if Ant wishes to, I'll let Ant pick up the nucleus crewing. I'll certainly pick up the capital financing and the pay, and I'm sure that Elgand can interject if there's anything further. So in respect to the capital financing, the borrowing that we make is we have fixed borrowing, that's our existing borrowing, and we make a provision for future borrowing. That future borrowing is based on estimates by Arling Close. Alongside that, it's predicated on the delivery of the capital plan. So if the capital plan delivers according to our timetable, we're reasonably assured that the capital financing estimate is robust. If the capital program is delayed, then there will likely be an underspend. In respect of the pay, this has been a moving target. The current estimate is 3.8%, which has moved from 4% down to 3.5%, and it's landed at 3.8%. What we do know is that's consistent with other local authorities. We know it's consistent with other fire authorities, but at this moment in time, those ongoing negotiations haven't been finalised. So it remains a risk to us. And if that risk comes to fruition, we've got a short-term balances on the balance sheet that can be utilised during 26-27, and it would then need to be picked up as part of the 27-28 planning. But that is probably the highest degree of uncertainty that we have in relation to the whole budget.
Okay, and we were quite conservative when we estimated it last year, weren't we?
We were indeed. We put a planning provision in of 3%, and it finalised at 3.2%, and we've absorbed that internally through vacancy control. And it's true to say that if the final allocation or settlement for this year is above the 3.8, we'd have to take internal measures to try and manage it in the short term.
Okay, thank you for that. Ant?
Thank you for the question. So members will be aware that the Emergency Cover Review at its heart since 2023 has been working to find a way of putting whole-time firefighters in our rural areas, and we were really pleased to be able to do that this year. in sort of mid to late September, early October, we were able to put 2 teams of 5 whole-time firefighters based at Porthmadog and Dolgellau. And we were able to put that plan in place by finding and collectively agreeing efficiencies with our representative colleagues and staff on our 8 whole-time stations. So those 10 firefighters, so 2 teams with a watch manager, a crew manager, and 3 firefighters, are now at Dolgellau and Porthmadog, and I'm really pleased to say that they're making some real improvements. It is early days. We are running this as a pilot, as members will understand. It is something new to the service, so but the sort of cohesiveness and working together with our on-call colleagues at those 2 stations is really positive. We're seeing some real added benefits we hadn't anticipated, and some planned benefits in relation to obviously the priority being the availability of those 2 fire appliances. Certainly in Dolgellau, for example, the numbers of RDS staff there have also improved, and we've at times been able to put 2 fire engines on at that fire station. But equally, the added value in relation to prevention and protection, risk work, that certainly I've met with the crews, both sets of crews, and they're out there doing risk visits as well. But the priority was always to make those 2 fire engines available, and they are certainly doing that. We are seeing an improvement in our availability and a better starting point, which was always the aim of the emergency cover review. So very early days. That pilot will run through all of 2026, where we will hope to build on the sort of green shoots we're seeing now. And we are bringing a paper to Full Fire Authority in January for you all, where we'll give you slightly more detail.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, any more questions? I've got a couple more. We noticed in this budget draft we've got the utilisation of reserves. Why are we using reserves? What's the justification there? And also it mentions regarding service level agreements and known other income coming in. Is there any possibility of looking to increase other income? And what's the future of the SLAs we do have in further?
I'll take that. So firstly on the SLAs, we quite timely, we had a meeting with North Wales Police yesterday, who support our facilities, and we are looking to review our SLAs we have and to make sure that they are inflated in line with inflation, so that will keep the income coming in and appropriate. And we're hoping to conclude that exercise by the 31st of March in preparedness for the new year. Apologies, Gareth, I missed the first question.
It was regarding why do we use reserves? What's the justification there in the mix of things, if you like? We're cutting, we're increasing levy. Why are we using a bit of reserves?
So we utilise reserves to limit as much as we can the increase to the levy. So by applying the reserves, it reduces the amount that is funded through the local authorities via the levy. Based on our reserve strategy, we only use it for one-off expenditure items. It's not there to fund sort of recurrent underlying deficits or fund any sort of long-term issues. It is for one-off expenditure. So a couple of items in the non-paid budgets for 26-27 have been identified as appropriate for funding through reserves. Therefore, we've applied the 271,000 to try and mitigate as much as possible the levy percentage to local authorities.
Okay. All right. I've got one last question. How does the union feel about this, and what was the latest union discussions on this, agreeing to this budget? Who's the union negotiator?
Thank you. That's myself at the moment. It's on the agenda for the next joint consultation negotiation committee, but certainly all station visits, we've touched on budget. Part of that has been about budget awareness, what process we go through to establish the budget, assurances on pay costs, and also just outlining the process that we go through in terms of the non-pay. As Elgin has commented, we do zero-based budgeting, but we always focus on the must-dos. So a lot of those business cases come through our technical operations team, which includes work around contaminants. Addressing the Chief Fire Advisor for Wales's recommendations and personal protective equipment. So by way of an example, within the budget, we've got the replacement of fire helmets. We've also got replacement of hoses, and within the budget, we're looking at supporting the response to wildfires with business case for drones as well. So formally, it hasn't been to the JCNC, but that will happen after this first draft has been approved.
Okay, thank you. And David, you want to come in?
Yeah, I think you've alighted on some of the more pertinent aspects of the budget in the discussion this morning. I think first the inflation, the pay inflation 3.8. I need to ensure, as your statutory finance officer, that these are proper estimates, and the pay inflation factor is the biggest variable within the whole budget, really. I think 3.8 has been arrived at, as Elgan said earlier. We started off lowish with 3-ish, went up to 4, and then sort of, we're making this a burden for local authorities. Can we bring it down a little bit more? Because inflation did tick up during the scope of the budget scrutiny working groups, and at the end we got that bang on the level of current inflation, 3.8, which is very reasonable, I think. I still believe that the pay deal for firefighters is likely to be higher than some of the sectors. So we need to be cognizant of that and have sufficient in the budget for that. I think 3.8 is, and it's higher than some local authorities have in for pay inflation. But I do think, as I said, that firefighters will probably have a higher pay deal than local government workers, for instance. So that's the biggest determinant. And as you asked, Chair, about the one-off funding, I wouldn't allow the authority to go ahead and fund huge swathes of permanent revenue budget from one-off reserves, because that would only store problems up for future years, when we would then have a sort of trampoline effect of levies going down in one year, then having to bounce up hugely in the following year, and that being unacceptable to our 6 funding authorities. So I think the funding of one-off expenditure from reserves is absolutely fine, and so those were the 2 sort of big issues. We did have discussions, as you know, in the budget scrutiny working group on some of these matters, and I think we've come to a reasonable place in the end, with the levy going up between about 4 and 5% for the constituent authorities, and we're quite usefully found out last week that the Welsh Government budget is going to settle on funding for those local authorities in the region of 4 and 5% for the following year. So I think we're in a reasonable place to move forward, and the next steps will be for you to, if you can, as well as the exec panel this afternoon, if you can say if you're comfortable with the budget as presented by Elgan to go forward to the full authority meeting in January, then I'm sure we'll be in a reasonable place for our funding authorities to accept that going forward.
Diolch, David. I mean, it's really important that we mention pay, for example. That is 70% of our expenditure, but also it's important that we have people moving forward with us in this setting. For instance, I mentioned the unions before. We don't want to see any industrial action. We want to see them going along and even proposing items that we could address. I will move to the recommendations, but before I go to any recommendations, is there anybody else that would like to say anything? This is the ideal opportunity before the budget goes to the full. Yes, John Moore Hughes.
Yeah, with the amount of rainfall increasing, I know it's affected South Wales, but have we had more flooding call-outs this year in North Wales? And does that affect the budget as well?
I'll probably talk from a budget perspective, but then I'm going to ask Anne to talk from an activity. By way of an assurance for members, when we set the budget, we look at activity across the whole of the year. We build in provision for that, but of course there can be peaks and troughs around that level. And if we have a peak, whether it be as a consequence of wildfires or indeed flooding, the first port of call would be the General Reserve. There will definitely be a long-term trend, and that is naturally built into the budget setting process. In terms of whether there has been a peak or a trough, I'm going to defer to my operational colleague.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. And interestingly, this year has been, although you wouldn't know it looking out of the window today, has been a particularly dry year for us. So our actual flooding instance for the first 2 quarters of this year are down 60%. We've had 12 flooding incidents in Q1 and Q2 of this year. However, if I could take us back to the previous 2 years, we had significant increases. So we are in a sort of a 3-year cycle we're sort of seeing that at the moment. This year was a particularly dry year, so we had quite a significant increase in our wildfires and a decrease thus far, and I have to caveat it with thus far in our floodings. But the previous 2 years, we had quite an increase in flooding incidents. So it'll depend on, quite likely or quite possibly in Q3, I may well be reporting that we've had a more of an increase. From a recent times, the past couple of weeks, you are right. I saw the news this morning and was feeling for my South Wales colleagues because they really have had quite a dire month or so. We have had an increase. We have had flooding incidents, but nothing that stretched us beyond our response capabilities.
Okay, thank you for that response. And operational activity really does affect finances at the end of the day. And it's worth mentioning also that when we started our budget process, we were looking at a figure of 7.5%. So to go 3% lower is some great work going on there. So, right, I'm just going to read the recommendations. Number 1 is that we note the findings of the Budget Scrutiny Working Group, including the planning assumptions being used for developing the revenue budget for 26-27. Number 2, note the current financial planning assessment of a revenue model required of 54.375 million and a capital budget of 6.661 million for 26-27. Number 3, the way we note to propose to utilise 0.271 million of reserves for 26-27. And finally, number 4, endorse the communication of the draft financial levy for 54.104 million from the constitutional local authorities. And I should add that regular conversation has gone on with our the financial officers in each public authority, and the CEO of each authority has been informed of this all the way through. So can I have a proposal for those recommendations? Thank you, John Brimore Hughes. A seconder, please. Thank you, Tina. All in favour of taking this to authority? Diolch. I think that's okay. Thank you. Okay, all right. Moving on from the budget, we go to the scheme of delegation. Who is leading on that then?
That's myself. It's having agreed having endorsed the budget, the scheme of delegation is a very natural segue. So on a day-to-day basis, the budget is devolved to the service, and we deliver that. Within that, under the Financial Management Code, we are required to have governance and controls. And our scheme of delegation is a framework within which we operate. The last scheme of delegation was approved back in 2023, and it's pertinent and relevant to update it periodically. So the paper on the agenda today is the proposed updated scheme of delegation. Internally, that's gone through our internal Finance and Procurement Committee. It's also gone through to the Service Leadership Team, and it's on the agenda today. Working through it, as you can see, Appendix 1 sets out the updated scheme of financial delegation. It's on a page. And you can see that that covers all areas of revenue, expenditure, capital expenditure, some specialist areas, and also staffing. The staffing relates to 70% of our expenditure. It's really, really important that we have robust controls in place. And within the service, any proposed new positions are subject to a business case. They come through to service leadership team, and it's only once they've gone through that process that they then come into the budget setting. More importantly, on a day-to-day basis, there we have delegated limits. We have all of our heads of department are what's known as budget holders, and they can delegate that to their team. And what it means is that all contracts, all elements of expenditure are subject to oversight and control. The same is true of capital expenditure, where for each capital spend we have a robust business case. It will come through the internal service governance arrangements, which includes scrutiny and challenge of that business case. Do we need the item? What's our route to market? Have we considered all of the options? And it's only then that it comes up to the service leadership team. Notably, there are some specialist areas, stock write-off being one of them, and as you can see, that the treasurer has approval over 5,000. Internally, with below that figure, that would rest with the principal officers. Settlement of legal cases and claims against the service. So the chief fire officer has that delegated authority. Notably, all contracts over £1 million are reported to the audit committee, and I hope this assures members that we have a robust scheme of delegation, and importantly, we have those controls supporting it. Seeking approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Helen. Okay, open to any questions? I will kick off then. How does this compare with other fire and rescue authorities throughout the UK? Are we in line with them? Are we below them? What does that look like?
We're slightly ahead of the curve, as it were. So very recently, you'll be aware that we've updated our contract procedure rules, and that's one of the reasons that it's necessitated changing our scheme of delegation. So our scheme of delegation now aligns to those contract procedure rules. We very regularly have meetings with finance colleagues across the sector. I sit on the National Fire Chiefs Council for finance, and internally we sit on the Welsh group. So I think it's fair to say that we're not out of line, but importantly, our arrangements do cover all areas of expenditure, all areas of income, and those really robust controls over staffing as well.
Okay, anybody else got any more questions? Considerations? Okay. I mean, in terms of... Oh, sorry, David, carry on.
Sorry, just to confirm that I did review these with Helen and Elgan about a month ago, and very happy with what's been proposed here. I think they're reasonable increases, and as Helen says, it's good to be ahead of the game sometimes, but I think they do draw from the position in some other authorities as well. So I think what's proposed is reasonable, and I've reviewed it. Diolch.
Okay, thank you for that, David. Right, in terms of democracy and member involvement, how do you see member involvement going forward in like the capital plan? And for example, big decision-making processes, for instance, for buying new engines and appliances.
Thank you. There are two routes we can take. I think at the last budget scrutiny working group, we considered the opportunity to have a final budget scrutiny ahead of the start of the financial year, and that would be a specific focus on capital. And we're really happy to support that and provide that for members as well. And that would enable members to really focus on those schemes that have gone through our internal governance within the service, and for which the capital plan is being utilised.
Okay. Any more questions from committee members? Okay, I can't see any more hands up. I will go to the recommendation that members approve the updated scheme of financial delegation. Do you have any proposer? Yes, Councillor Ian Hodge, seconding. Councillor Austin Roberts. All in favour? Diolch. Thank you. Motion carried. Okay, moving on now. We have going into part 2. So do we have a mover for part 2? I'll move that we move to part 2. Seconded. Councillor Tina Claydon. Okay, all in favour of moving to part 2? Thank you. Okay. Can we confirm
Sorry, Chair, could you just bear with while I stop the recording? Sorry.
Yeah, certainly, Lisa.